We are back now with a special interview with one of the coaches from British Hurricane. We've got Elbion on stream. How are you feeling, Elbion?
I'm feeling good. You know, we are, what is it? We're 6-0 and we've 3-0'd everybody. So you do the math.
It's a pretty good place to be if you're a British Hurricane fan or if you're on the staff and a team as well. Leading into that, I guess the immediate question then is, you guys have been dominant all the way through the bracket. Was that expected, or were there a couple of teams that you thought would give you some trouble?
I mean, realistically, when you look at it, it's kind of a bummer that people are less excited about us doing so well. I mean, realistically, we the only academy team in the tournament, so people kind of just expect us to win, it feels like. So, you know, we've been having pretty similar runs to, you know, Team XD and Team Avoided up until, you know, a couple matches ago. But it just feels like there's not a lot of hype around it, which is kind of, I don't know, it's kind of fair.
Well, let's take a little bit of a step back here. And for anyone who might not know Elbion, who are you exactly? We know you're a coach of British Hurricane. We just introduced you as that. But how long have you been with British Hurricane? What's your deal, man?
So I've been with British Hurricane for about a year and a half now. I joined them in week 2 of Contenders Season 2 2018. So that'd be about a year and a half, and then at season 1 of Contenders 2018, I was with Envision Esports and NA Contenders. So I've done pretty much 2 full years of the Contenders grind.
Nice. And you said so far the tournament has been relatively easy for British Hurricane, but how do you feel about the tournament in general? Is that single elimination format, tons of teams in a short amount of time? You guys been having fun over at British Hurricane?
Yeah, we've been having a ton of fun. We don't get to do tournaments like this very often anymore with Contenders, right? Where it's been a lot, one match per week kind of deal. This year, of course, that'll be different. There'll be, more matches every week, but it's been a ton of fun. This is just a kind of bracket that, it's very reminiscent of much more old school tournaments, much more of these weekend, monthly kind of tournaments. And it's a lot of fun. We just hop in and we get to have a little bit more fun with it. There's not a week of anticipation for the match building and, just everyone getting kind of stressed about it. It's just, we just kind of hop in and play the games.
Yeah, I mean, okay. We talked a little bit about how the tournament has been going your way. You guys have still gone through a couple of teams that perhaps would have been known to members of Tier 2 and Tier 3. Going through which of those teams? We talked about how it being relatively easy. I think you said you didn't drop that many points. Even we're not even talking about maps at that stage, right? So going up against those teams, are there names that you kind of guys watched out for? If so, were there any surprises?
I mean, we thought we were going to have to take HSL and Yab out of the tournament ourselves, which we were more than prepared to do, but they sort of just lost to other teams. I'm not really sure what happened for them, because those are 2 teams that we have been scrimming a fair amount, and realistically, we kind of expected better from them. But like you said, and I know I told you before, but I think we might have dropped maybe 2 rounds or 3 rounds of Nepal this tournament, and besides that, that's it. We've been 3-0ing everybody. I mean, we've had the easier side of the bracket, I would say, so far, so we're looking forward to having finally kind of a good match in the finals.
Yeah, let's talk about your competition for the finals, the Raspberry Racers, as it were. Now, Avoided was another team that thus far had been 3-0ing everyone, and Raspberry Racers put them in their place, took them out 3-1 fashion. Are you shaking in your boots, or are you feeling pretty confident going into the grand finals here?
Oh no, I'm not worried about the Raspberry Racers at all. I have a lot of respect for a bunch of the players in that team. Obviously Happy Cool is a former player of ours, so we're big Happy Cool fans here at Hurricane. But I mean, he's been fucking inting his ass off on ball, and he's been getting away with it so far. But we have better DPS players than the rest of the tournament, so you're not going to get away with that shit against us. And I love Naga. Naga, I love you, man. I think he's been out there. Naga's been on the grind for a really long time, but he's been fucking flying into people's spawns by himself without a mercy on Farah, right? And he's been getting punished for it. And you do that shit against us, and we're going to kill your whole team.
So, I mean, that segues perfectly into Happy Cool. Yeah, it segues perfect to asking about Happy Cool, because for those who may not be aware, Happy Cool did play for the British Hurricane a while back before moving to NA Contenders. I want to talk about Happy Cool. You mentioned his wrecking ball, but what else about Happy Cool, even if you don't expect his team to perhaps perform against you guys specifically, what is it that Happy Cool brings to the table that you kind of were talking about?
I mean, from a actual team perspective, not so much in these kind of mixed rosters, right? But when you get to an actual team perspective, something that Happy's always been really good at is he's kind of a natural in-game leader. He does a lot of shot calling. He has a lot of strategy ideas that he's definitely not afraid to share, and he's really proactive in making sure that the team's comms and attitude in a match are they kind of stay in high spirits. He hypes people up, So I know that other members of the Raspberry Racers are really positive players, which doesn't surprise me. They're bringing these matches back, right? They're pulling out in clutch situations. I mean, we're not going to let them get to those clutch situations. This is going to be a 3-0 because we know what they play, and if they swap to play something else, we're more practiced than them on it anyways, so we're fine.
Yeah. Let's pivot for a moment from former Hurricane players to current Hurricane players, because who do you feel we should keep an eye out for here on the Hurricane in this Grand Finals match?
I mean, it's a roll lock meta. It's a much heavier DPS focused time period of Overwatch right now, so it's hard to get away from the fact that Doomfist is pretty strong right now, and we do it, and it's also hard to get away from the fact that snipers are pretty strong now, and we do have Sparker. So I definitely want to kind of draw attention to the DPS players who have been with us for a while, but our tank line is still pretty new. This is actually once we started this tournament, this was only the second match that our tanks have ever played together. They played one game of the Contenders playoffs together. So it's been awesome for the last couple of months, finally getting them to, kind of get to work together and get to gel for a while, more than, 3 days before we had to play a semifinal match.
Yeah, fair enough. And I know you can't give us too much of a peek behind the curtain at the strategy, the analytics that go on behind the scenes, but you were talking a little bit about how you feel it's a very DPS dependent meta and that it relies a lot on Doomfist and snipers, and I think we can throw May in there too a little bit. So you feel you guys have a pretty confident read on the new meta. It's not going to be crazy compositions like Junkrats coming out of nowhere, Pharah's flying over your head. That's going to be weighing you down here. It's going to be consistent. You guys feel that it's not too much of a change from what we have been seeing?
No, we are an actual professional team. We do not have one tricks on the roster. Denid is an exceptional Doom player, and I know he plays a lot of Doomfist in comp, but he is not an actual one trick. No one on our roster is that inflexible, right? My players are actually capable of learning the game, and we've been scrimming on the patch pretty much ever since it came out on PTR, so we have plenty of practice on the patch.
Quick fire, I guess, here, in terms of questions about the PTR current live patch, I guess. Favorite change that happened in it?
Probably the Orisa shield health change, I think, was a really good one. I think they messed it up by giving her more health and a shorter cooldown on Fortify, but the shield health change was kind of by itself a nice one to see. But realistically, the patch didn't feel that great to me. Like, it looked great on paper, but once you kind of get into it, you start realizing that May is still too strong, and May still gatekeeps like every tank for playing the game besides like Orisa, Sigma, Ball, so there's still huge issues with like kind of stagnation in the meta, where like heroes like May and Hanzo, and also, to be fair, Orisa and like Sigma and BAP are just too versatile. They just do too many things, and these are kind of just the heroes that, for anyone, I know this tournament has a lot of people kind of playing their own thing, but looking forward to Overwatch League next year and to Contenders next year, that's what you're going to be seeing unless there's more changes, for sure.
Well, we're excited to see you guys in Contenders, but more so in the grand finals of this match. Thank you so much for joining us, Elbion. We're going to be back hopefully soon with the grand finals between Raspberry Racers and British Hurricane. Thank you for sticking with us this long, and make sure you stick around for the very last match.